testimonies, God, to come up with solutions to support this community, and God, to give you glory. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Okay, I think we're going to just let the representatives introduce themselves here, and I'm going to go back and grab the list so that we know everyone who signed up to speak tonight while they're doing that.
Well, thank you very much for being here. I'm David Eastman, and look forward to chatting with you as the evening goes on. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Representative Kristopher Kurka. This is District 7 where we're at right now. That will change with redistricting, but for now it's District 7. Happy to represent you and very much looking forward to hearing from you tonight. Just for clarity, this event was not sponsored by the offices of Representative Kurka or Representative Eastman. This was a personally sponsored event. There's no government resources used to facilitate this. That way we're free to say something we might need to say later if we have to. And I think there's only housekeeping stuff I was going to mention. Okay.
All right. So just in terms of housekeeping, I'm going to kind of go over the format that we have planned for tonight. But just so you know, the restrooms are back here to the right. If you need to use them, feel free to do that at any point. We have a few people who just told us ahead of time that they want to share something tonight. So those are going to be the folks that we're going to call on first. But I think we're going to have time to go ahead and take additional comments from other people who might decide they want to. So what we're going to do is just call out your names and come forward, and you can either address that way or this way, however you feel comfortable. And we're going to try to keep it pretty on topic, and I don't know if we have a time limit per testimony. Is that a thing?
Well, we want to make sure everyone gets a chance to be
Yeah, so just make sure everybody gets a chance. We'll go with that. Okay, and let me know if the volume needs to be adjusted at all. So we're going to start with Kareem. Where did you go? Did I say your name right? Yes. Will you start for us, just because I know you have limited time tonight?
Hey. Where do you want me?
Just come on right up here. And I'm going to fill this.
Electronics. Awesome.
Okay, do you want to use the microphone?
No, I'm loud enough. Can y'all
Okay.
hear me? All right. My husband is a veteran, Air Force veteran, and he works on base as a civilian now. And he is not being treated very well for not getting the jab. And he actually is trying to move jobs, and he got hired for another job on base, and they actually won't let him go unless he gets the jab or has an exemption, which he turned in an exemption quite a while ago, but they don't know how to deal with the exemption, so they don't do anything with the exemption. So basically they're keeping him from moving jobs. He has to test, he and a couple other people that are unvaccinated have to test every week, but the vaccinated people do not, even though they can still contract it and spread it. The coercion is really intense. I wish he could be here tonight, but we work in Anchorage and we came home to our freezer down from all the power outages. So we have food melting and he's taking care of that. But I wanted him to speak for him, but he's not able. So that's kind of our situation. He's pretty sure he's going to be fired. They told him that he would have to go in front of a board to prove his exemption. And I'm not quite sure how that works, or if there's any attorneys you could recommend, because I think if they're going to put him through that, we ought to have representation through that too.
Muriel Bird.
May I interrupt and say the Real Voice of America, they have, that's a good, and Newsmax, they have plenty of attorneys in the lower 48 that would give advice. You get online and they'll give you all advice.
Well, I would like to hire someone to come with for this inquisition that he has to be in front of.
Well, these people here may have attorneys that they know of here in the state, because if you haven't ever been to court, and I have, the attorney may or may not help you whether you're paying for it or not. You know, you need to get the right attorney. That's for certain.
Yeah. I'll take
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's great. I'll take whatever advice I can get to deal with our situation. Anyway, it's been extremely stressful to the fact that it makes him physically ill, and
we're gonna lose our house over it if he gets fired.
Anyway, that's our story in a nutshell.
Call my office and we'll talk about attorneys.
Will do. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, it's fine. He should be.
Corinne, thank you very much for coming. I know you gotta run off to work, so we can't, hold you
I
too much
have
longer.
a few minutes. but-
Okay, if you, well, I just wanted to respond, briefly. You had mentioned how, unhelpful they've been with the, exemptions and that whole process, whatnot. If it's any, if it's of any interest, I technically am a federal employee as well. And, I don't generally work in that capacity, but, on occasion I do. And, when the federal government decided to, give me instructions on what to do as far as exemptions and those sorts of things, I just explored, well, what would that look like if you didn't get vaccinated, if you're looking for an exemption. So I contacted the email address where I was instructed to, apply for information, not necessarily an exemption, but information about an exemption. And the address that they provided didn't work. And then after a long while, when they had an address that did work, they weren't sure what to do either. So for how many months now we've been in we're not sure.
Yeah.
And as a part-time occasional federal employee, I have no idea because, where the information I was told was contact this number and you'll get information, and we've been waiting for months and have no information. So.
But they don't treat you poorly, like try and coerce you and treat you with discrimination. Like, I feel my husband is being discriminated against by forcing him every week to take a test when nobody else has to. And that's discriminatory, especially when vaccinated can still spread it and still contract it. No different than him, so I don't know.
Hostile work environment.
It is hostile. It's
it's a problem.
awful. And I don't know. I grew up here. I'm born and raised in the valley, and I remember when Russia was where we heard of propaganda. But I'm telling you, it's us. We're Russia now.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. We're gonna go back up to the top now, and go to Shannon, and, heard a little bit of her story earlier, and it's a doozy. Do you want the microphone?
Yes.
Okay.
I need the mic.
So, Shannon, maybe, whose camera is this?
Pretty long.
I don't know.
You want me to move it?
Just go right there. And you can either address the crowd or address them, it doesn't matter, whatever you want.
Okay. I'm Shannon Guerra. I am a mama beat and I'm a writer and an author. My husband is also a writer and author. You know my husband. Hi, good to meet you.
Yes, thank you.
And our toddler, who is just turned 3, broke his leg last week. And we went to Capstone and got x-rays. They were very nice there with Dr. Scott Schaefer. But the x-rays indicated that he needed emergency surgery. So they suggested that we go into Providence because the PEDS surgeon on call at Alaska Regional wasn't super comfortable with it because it wasn't his specialty. So we drove into Providence. I have a medical exemption for like 3 reasons, and Providence did not want to let me in the building. So while I was talking with their bouncers at the door, my husband was bringing our toddler and our 6-year-old, and he just blew past the bouncers. And we went into the ER, and we were immediately handed masks. I said, I have a medical exemption. They don't know what that means. The nurse said repeatedly, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. Like she was the one with the 3-year-old who needed emergency surgery. And the ER was packed. So we left there, and we went to Alaska Regional. And Alaska Regional had a faster ER. There was like nobody waiting. The guy at the desk was very nice, let us in without a mask. He seemed to understand what a mask exemption was. And we proceeded to do all the normal ER things for the next hour and a half. And we got some flack from a couple nurses who their immediate concern was she would turn to the doctor and say, we have a mask issue. And my husband said, we don't have a mask issue. We're here for a broken arm. So we did all this stuff for an hour and a half, and eventually a nurse came in with something, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I need to swab your son." And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, it's required for surgery." And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, then we can't do surgery with you." And so we went for this whole round and round. "Can you give me information?" "No, we're not really going to talk about it." The most information I got on the swab was from one of the intake doctors who said it was about this long. It only has to go up the nose about this far. Well, my son is barely 3, and his nose is that big, and I'm not going to let him do that. So eventually it escalated where the nurses continued to come in. They brought greater numbers of nurses. My husband was not allowed to be in there with me because they have a one-parent policy. So I was there with my hurting child alone, and they're bringing in their posse of people, including security outside the door that they wanted me to see. And eventually it came down to the surgeon came in and he said loudly, like he basically blew into the room and yelled, "You've refused to have the COVID swab. I'm not going to do your surgery. I can't do your surgery because it's policy, and no swab, no surgery." And so he ran out. And we have several of these things on video. Eventually, the nurse, the staff supervisor nurse, came in with another group of nurses and security outside the door and told me that since I was refusing to comply, they were going to have to call the police and trespass me. And then eventually, she wanted to send me back to Providence. Now, Providence, of course, we had already left. She knew that we had left Providence. Providence would have had the same surgeon because he's the same surgeon on call at both hospitals. She did not know that we knew that, but we knew that. And so Providence was not an option. And she knew that she was just trying to waste our time. Well, we had a child who needed emergency surgery. And at one point, she also said, "Well, I guess you'll have to go to the Alaska Native Medical Center." And I said, "I'm not Native." And she said, "You're right, you're not," and smirked at me, knowing that she was wasting our time and just trying to get rid of us and waste our time, sending us on a wild goose chase while our son needed treatment. So at that point, they were calling the police, and I did not trust them to do anything. I was afraid that they were going to try to separate me from my child. And so I carried him and left, not knowing if we would get any care anywhere. So we got back in the car. We had been texting friends saying, "Can you please call the hospital and let them know that you're hearing about this?" And so we had several people call. My dad called, our friends called. They were getting hung up on in the ER. The ER, whoever was answering the phone was super rude to them. So that was a huge deal. We eventually came out to Matsu Regional, and we called on the way, and they put me on hold after I told them the whole situation. "Will you do surgery on my son without the COVID swab?" And eventually someone came back and they said, "Yes, we will do surgery. We will just have to treat it as though he's COVID positive." And I think the only reason that we got to do that was because there was a surgeon who agreed to do it. Had we had another lousy surgeon who had the power trip and the ego who wouldn't let him walk through the room, we would not have been able to have treatment. So eventually our son got surgery the next day. It was an awful break. It was truly traumatic. I mean, it was traumatic for him as a little guy being injured. It was traumatic for us being treated as though we had absolutely zero rights. And that's our story. So it's all over the internet now, and I'm happy to connect with any of you guys and give you a copy of the videos that we took and also our story in writing or in video. Thanks.
I think it needs to be, I think you would be a great person to reach that, because you're not the first person, and then I don't have much of a voice when our own ER docs, and then it just comes down to people being dismissed. I mean, and yeah. Every paper I'm sure the next original has pretty much reached the mass exemption. Only 1 out of 10 will actually start up, and like, I don't think we do that here. I'm like, oh, I assure you we can do that. I mean, 2 and 2, 4, 3, that's our hot and ask. It's our hot and ask for Jamie, the director.
Do you gentlemen up there
Yeah.
realize the masks don't work at all? Do you realize that?
Okay. Well, thank you, Shannon. No, don't apologize.
This could be
Thank you for
proven
sharing.
real easy.
We're gonna go down to John, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. I brought my bag of tricks here with me. You'll have to bear with me a little bit. My name's John Nelson. It's Thomas John Nelson. My friends call me John. I'm a financial advisor, and as a financial advisor in my profession, I have a fiduciary responsibility.
And I'm not here as a
I'm not here as a financial advisor, and I can't give you medical advice because I'm not licensed for that. But
And I'm not an elected
and
official.
I'm not an elected official, but I'm held to a higher standard than our elected
And
officials.
in Anchorage, about a month
And in
ago,
Anchorage, about a month ago, I gave these two gentlemen a packet of
We all know
information,
each
and
other.
we all know each
and
other,
We're all mad,
and we're all mad,
okay?
okay?
But
And-
how many of you?
But how many of you were given
A treatment
a treatment choice as an option, and, you know, you go in with this COVID crap, and how many people offered you a solution?
No hands, look at that.
No hands, look at that. Nobody
Well,
did.
One of
Well, one of the community organizations that I work with out here in the valley, called The Last Frontier, is very much active in the community. And we have a sister organization in Anchorage called Wellsprings, at Wellsprings, and in fact, they're holding a meeting tonight. And they've got a medical group. And in that medical group, bear with me a moment, they put together some flyers for how to treat and be proactive on how to treat with this nonsense that's going on. I've got extra copies of these, and I'll leave them back here for everybody to have to take with you. The ones I'm going to put out there aren't folded, because I printed these just tonight, and I didn't have time to fold them all. But it's just a trifold. And it talks about how to manage that. But get with the frontline doctors. There are people proactive working on this, okay? And so that's what those are. But also, about a month ago, I passed along a packet of information. You guys probably recognize this, don't you? Is that a yes?
Was this in November?
Yeah,
I was out of state for that.
I think you were sitting at the desk.
No, he was actually.
Oh, you were on Zoom. Did you get this packet?
No, I didn't get that packet. I would like that packet.
That's amazing that it didn't get to you, because I left 3 other ones for all of the other people on Zoom, and they didn't get that to you. Well, you've got it here now.
Thank you.
Inside of this packet here, it actually, bear with me here, please, it has a letter of instruction. This letter of instruction is to point out no less than 70 accounts that have been perpetrated on humanity. This right here is a proposed indictment. Why don't we start with Faushi? Look at all these heads nodding.
Yeah.
Domestic terrorism resulting in death of American citizens, conspiring to commit acts of terrorism, conspiring to criminal commercial activity, funding and creating a bioweapon. That's exactly what this is. And our taxpayer dollars paid for this. Once you understand that, you have to understand that we're at war. Okay, and this is crimes against humanity, and this information is publicly sourced. Every bit of it. Here's all the links. They're clickable PDFs on this thumb drive that's included in this packet. Also, I will put this on the back counter as well for you to pick up. It is wanted poster for the bioweapon act of terrorism and the millions that are dying worldwide. We have over 1 million people that have suffered VAERS adverse reactions. On the bottom right here, you'll see a QR code. Pull out your iPhone, take a picture of it, and it'll take you to the link to Dr. David Martin. Dr. David Martin put together the Faushi Dossier. This Faushi Dossier is the patents on this that was printed or created in 2002. 2002. Not only that, but we don't need them to, they have admitted to the crime in 2017. They admitted that they needed what we're going through right now so they could profit from it. In my realm, in my work, we follow the money. And when you follow the money, you follow the crimes. And it leads you right back to the criminal activity, and that's exactly what this is. This is a criminal activity that has been perpetrated on humanity.
And this man here is not overstating it, okay? And you representatives really need to take note.
Thank you for that, because the representatives, everybody inside of here that is following along is violating the Nuremberg Code. In Europe, they're trying to circumvent the Nuremberg Code because they realize that they're held accountable to that. I apologize for making a mess here for you. But that's what this original letter that I wrote. It's a notice to all elected officials. In fact, Jesse, you're an elected official. I'm going to give you a packet here too. Would you like to have a packet, sir?
I definitely want one, sir.
Are you an elected official?
No, but I'd like one.
Jesse, you're an elected official. I need to hand this to you, please, sir. Because you are an elected official. Here's what this letter intent says. You need to give this information to the Justice Department. You need to give it to the State Attorney General, because they're the ones that can do something about this. It needs to go to the U.S. Justice Department. Now, I went into the U.S. Justice Department to deliver this to them. You know what they told me?
Put on a mask.
No. Well, that's a good one. I appreciate that. We need a little bit of humor right now. Actually, before I went into the Justice Department, I went to Anchorage Police Department. And I said, hey, if I was to share with you that there's criminal activity going on, what would you do? And they said, I'll take your statement. So I tell them what I had, and they said, oh, you got to go to the Justice Department. So I did. And this was after I went to Murkowski's office, Young's office, Sullivan's office, the governor's office, okay, and give them all these things. The Justice Department said, we need to have a referring investigative agency refer it. And they said, I said, like who? And they said, the FBI. How many of you trust the FBI in here? Look, no hands go up. One person? Oh, he's I don't have my glasses on, I couldn't see that symbol there, but anyways, so I went to the FBI. They aren't opening their doors. There was 2 security guards in the building, in the FBI building, and they said, you need to call this local number. I called the local number. You know who that guy told me to, because he wanted me to share this information through the phone. How'd you come in possession of all this evidence? And that's exactly what this is evidence. Here's what he said. You need to go talk to the local dog catcher, because he told me to go to the state troopers. I already went to the governor's office. I already handed this to the state attorney general in person, and I have a delivery receipt. Now, I need the elected officials to also give this to the state attorney general and to the Justice Department, please, because I'm going to hold you guys accountable. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Why don't you give all that out to
The
everyone?
next person on the list here is Mike Alexander.
I'm technically, I don't know.
We have some more chairs up front, folks, if you want to come up this way.
I always have a problem with microphones. Hope this is good enough. What I've been following is the VAERS. I'm a retired nurse. I'm not really too proud of that anymore from the behavior that my fellow nurses are giving everybody. This is awful. We aren't treating this stuff right. But if you're long in the tooth like I am, other than that, you have a 98% chance of 99% for young people to get over this stuff. Yet they're forcing vaccinations on you. My big point was today I was looking and the new, which is a vaccine adverse event report system, is only good for about 5% of the actual injuries. Today, as of today, there are 21,002 deaths from this vaccine. And the sad part is, you have to take that times 20. So you've got about 420,000 people that are dead. On top of that, you have 35,000 something, call it 35,000 even, that have permanent disabilities from this stuff. So you have 700,000 people there, and this is the conservative guess on the VAERS. It's been as low as only 1% of them reported. So basically, you have the entire state of Alaska's population that has a permanent disability. They're not going to go out and fill a job. They're not going to do anything. They're going to have to be taken care of. Leaves about 30,000 of us, I guess, to take care of 700,000 people that probably need it. And my point is, I don't know why in the hell Dr. Zink is still employed by this state.
Right.
That's something I want to know, and I'd appreciate it if you all would call down to the governor's office and ask him that same nice question. It's nothing but a CDC repeating thing. It's going bad. And I don't see us, as a nurse, this goes against everything I have ever done as a nurse. They treat these people like they've got plague when they have a 99% chance of getting over it. They don't get them up out of bed, cough them, anything else, and they're utterly amazed when they come down with pneumonia. You know, it's just, like I said, the whole thing is, and then the medical board, thank God everybody rallied up and kept Dr. Leona Farr and the rest of the other 24 doctors out of the scoop. But what about the 100 quacks that signed the thing against them? These are hospital people, and they are flat killing people. And I want to know why in the hell they still have a license, or at least they're not up for it. And that's something that I would like to see all of us address if we can, because this has gotten to the point of just being ridiculous. And it's not even, there's nothing to it. You can't wear a mask and keep this stuff away from you. You can't, the vaccine doesn't work. It is killing people. It's killing more people than we have people that have died from COVID.
Bioweapon.
Basically.
What it is.
And it's going to mutate. That's what viruses do. They always have. You wash your hands, you kind of wipe down the countertops, doorknobs, things like that, and you do the best you can. And so I would like to see if y'all would get with it, is to call down the governor's office and ask him why Ms. Zink still has a job,
Right.
what he plans on doing about it. And if you want to, you can come see the governor next Saturday at Real Life Church. He'll be there. And you can ask him in person. But that's the thing that everybody, you should be calling the Department of Health and General Services. Call Adam Crum. Ask him what is going on. Because this is ridiculous. You have a child with an emergency and they're going to make you go with a swab test. Ridiculous. The whole thing is. And it just gives people an excuse to not provide the service they used to provide. And the caring and the things they used to do. And the nurses that still do care, a lot of them are quitting because they're just burned out. They can't do this anymore. I don't know if you all are aware of this or not. What they will give you at the hospital, I've lost 2 friends over this stuff because they won't do alternate treatments. Remdesivir, 31% of all patients have renal failure. Exactly. And so you're going to sit there as a patient, as a doctor or a nurse, you're not going to do anything for them except sit there and watch them drown. And I don't know why that isn't, I mean, that's a crime against humanity. It is as wicked really as anything the Nazis did in World War II. Murder. It's right on the same category. Right. And like I said, you have at least 400,000 people dead across the nation from the vaccination. You have another 700,000. These are, like I said, estimates. You know, this is Bell palsy. These are people that have the permanent neural damage. They've got everything going on with them. And why this is going on, I don't know. But I would certainly like to see some action here. I know you guys are rather limited on what you can actually do, but I think we need to, something needs to be done because this has gone too far. There's a lot of doctors up here. We should probably have to have an emergency situation where we need new doctors, because do you really want to go to a doctor that would sit there and watch you drown because it's policy? That is a question I'd like to leave you all with. Thank you.
Mike, can you share about your pharmacy?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you would all like to have some horse warmer. A medicine that's been out for 40 years. They've given 3.4 billion doses of it worldwide. There are maybe 20 deaths associated with it, and a lot of those are shaky. So ivermectin is a very safe drug. If you all write this down, you can go to alldaychemist.com. And what it is, they have offices here. They have offices in America. You give them a call, and they don't do credit cards, but they will do a bank deposit. You know, you take it out of your bank, like a, what do you call that?
Wire transfer. Wire transfer.
Yeah, wire transfer, good enough. And they do that. And the price for 12 milligram ivermectin from them is about, the time you pay shipping and all, it's about $1.76 a tablet. And it takes a while to get here is the only thing. And like John said, I'd like to echo what he said about frontline doctors. If you have someone that's sick right now, be sure and just go to them. It's a little spendy, but they will overnight the stuff even if they need to. They'll get the ivermectin to you, and it does work. You just need to get it as quick as you can. If you do get sick, you're not sure of something, if you take the ivermectin and you end up with only the flu or something else, you'll be parasite free. You know, it's kind of a nice thing there, but it's a really good drug, and it's working out really well across. One doctor said he's had 100% early, if he gets an early intervention the first couple of days or so of the disease, he has a 100% recovery rate. He said the people that came in later, he has a 99% recovery rate for them. So it's a pretty good drug, and the prices are decent, and they should get it to y'all.
What's the name of that again?
All Day Chemist.
What if they won't fill it?
Who's this?
What if the pharmacy doesn't fill it?
Oh, yeah, I have a letter here I got from another group, and basically, there it is. Oh, God, got good news. This is from a lawyer named Matthew P. Tyson. It's in California, but their laws should be very parallel to ours. And basically, 30% of all your medicines are prescribed for an off-label use. So when they tell you that it's not designed for this, it's not FDA approved, that's also a lie. Because it has been approved by the FDA for one thing. As long as it's approved for one thing, it can be prescribed by a doctor. So these pharmacists down here, I think Fred Myers is pretty guilty of it. A few more here locally will not fill it. Walgreens will, but they don't get a whole lot in each week, but they do fill it for ivermectin when they have it. So your doctor can write it, and the thing is, though, this was sent to CVS pharmacies, and that's the main thing about it is ivermectin is an approved drug. It's the safest drug in the world. The World Health Organization recognizes it as a mainline drug. It's a main thing. It does great work on like river blindness, things like that. It's wiped them out. I mean, pretty much. And there's nothing there left anymore. It used to be parasites in the eye and make people go blind and like around the equator, places like that. So it's a great drug, and it's safe. And that's the whole thing about it.
Table 2E?
Oh, yeah, Table 2E, I forgot about that. The National Institute of Health has an emergency use for remdesivir is number 1, but it's Table 2E. You can just Google it. I even got away with it on Google. NIH Table 2E. And what it is, the second drug down there is ivermectin. And it's on emergency use. It can be used that way. It's just that they will not send you the money like they will send you for using remdesivir. It's a whole, and it doesn't. Ivermectin, if you do the IV dose, it's around 20 to 40 bucks, I think, not more than 100. The remdesivir is somewhere around $3,000 for the whole thing. So that's the deal. It's just money, and that's. But ivermectin has actually been, if it's not FDA approved, it's certainly on emergency use status. It's number 2. People just don't know that.
They won't use it. I got a question for you about, does any of these companies that are pushing the jab actually meet the threshold for calling their stuff a vaccine?
No. No. The only drug they have that is the commodity, and it's not available in the United States. So, and they may have another, I think the military came up with one. And it's actually like a traditional vaccine to where it's not gene therapy, where this is gene therapy actually. And you don't have any informed consent, unfortunately.
Hey, I'm not sure who you are or the guys behind the table. I'm not a social butterfly here in the valley. I've been here since '94. I'm a retired GI. And I agree with some of what you said about the medical assistance and help that we get in the hospital on some cases. But this lady here is a registered nurse.
So am I.
And she has 3 boys in New York City. One of them works at Long Island General. One of them works in Mount Sinai. That big storm of death they had. And those boys are not standing by watching those people die. They're doing everything they can to help them out. So, some of what you said, and I ran into it this summer at Matsu. My mother is 81 years old. She had low oxygen level in her blood. Took her to Matsu. She's 81 years old. Put her on the 2nd floor, and they stuck her in the hallway with everybody that was tested positive for COVID. She's 81 years old. So that part I agree. They're retards for doing that. But to stand there and say that blanket medical or standing by and watching.
Well, I'll tell you like this, it's more that are than aren't,
Sure,
okay? I'll give you an exceptional here and there, but I'm saying generally, this is what's going on, it's for the bucks.
Sure.
So, you know, I realize there's, and like I said, I did tell you, there's a lot of nurses out there that are quitting because they just can't do that anymore.
I agree with that too.
You betcha. Yes,
I
ma'am.
have to go, and I just have a quick question on another topic. How do you get, because I've emailed Murkowski and Sullivan and stuff like that, how do you get them to respond? The only representation I've ever had respond to me is sitting in this room, like Sun.
Don't use my name.
Mike Showers responded to me, but they're all local. How do you get the bigger ones to actually respond?
Vote them out of office and
Yeah.
put somebody else new in.
But I don't really know, getting the federal government to do anything is a major accomplishment, but locally here, we can do some stuff, and that's what we're gonna have to do is local. And all that, so, I'm done.
Yeah, just a quick, in case y'all aren't aware, about half a mile down the road, they do have offices. Now, whether they're there or not, I can't tell you, but you can, you know, if it means enough to you, you can go knock on their door and see who answers and hopefully tell them your story and hopefully get a response that way. But, you know, sometimes emails don't get responded to. I really can't say one way or the other on that.
I have to go as well. I just want to let everybody know that people can be held personally accountable for violating the laws. It's USC 501. Called the color of law. You can just Google it. So we need to start holding these people personally accountable when they violate the law. And anybody can file a pro se argument in court for about $40. So it's time to start going after their bonds. Anybody who's a public official has to have a bond in place. And if these insurance companies have to start paying out on these bonds, it'll come to a stop.
Thank you.
Really quick, I work on the base as well, prior military. Went to a few town hall meetings when all this stuff, this mandate came out. They were trying to sugarcoat stuff. And like he spoke, I don't know exactly who's in this room, but if any of you have any pull, the guys on the base, to include our union representative, are telling people on the base that that vaccine that's supposedly approved that's in the United States, that the base has it. So.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's not what they're telling people.
This guy here, he's also getting ready to lose his job, retired GI, because he won't take the jab, and every Monday he has to go get that little swab in his nose, when statistics are showing that those people that are vaccinated are getting sicker than those that aren't. So like you said, if you have any pool, you can help out.
Really appreciate the feedback. But I want to get your name. I want to stay in touch in the back. and the hoodie. I want to get your name. I want to stay in touch. So if you could sign on the sheet, and then we actually had a queue of people I want to get your testimony.
Yeah,
Haley-
he's talking to you.
Yeah, Haley will go through the list, and she'll call on you. And
If you go ahead and sign in, if you want to.
we want to get you up here.
Okay, next person on the sign-in sheet is Warren Foster.
First, thanks guys for doing this, and I'm just your average Joe. I thought that we were supposed to come and tell us how COVID has affected us, and my story is nothing compared to some of those we've heard. So I'll try to make it kind of fast and not take all your time. Back in April of 2021, my little boy turned 2, and the day before, we'd been in San Diego for a month visiting family, and we timed it to come home the day before he turned 2, so we didn't have to buy him a plane ticket, because once they turn 2, you know, sit on your lap anymore. And while we're in the terminal area, people kept yelling at us, "How come he doesn't have a mask on?" I'm like, "Hey, not 2 yet." And we got on the plane, and first thing out of the flight, "How come he doesn't have a mask on?" Well, it's not 2 yet. And then while we're on the plane, and he's sitting on my lap, and he doesn't have his own seat, he's sitting on my lap, flight attendant comes by, "How come he doesn't have a mask on? He needs to get his mask on." And I'm like, you know, they are required by law, if they're 2 years old, to have their own seat. You don't seem to care about that. Why do you care that he doesn't have a mask on if you think he's 2? And anyway, the reason I'm telling that story is because we now can't travel because he has turned 2. And it's child abuse to try to force a 2-year-old to wear a mask. I've seen the videos, you've seen them, of them forcibly trying to force a mask onto a 2-year-old baby while he's screaming and crying. And I've heard stories of parents drugging their children so that they will keep their mask on so that they can fly. And if your baby won't wear a mask after you're already on the plane, then when you get to Seattle, they're going to kick you off and you won't be able to, they'll say you're permanently banned from this airline. Now how are you going to get home? And you can't drive through Canada. First place, you don't have a car. And unless you can prove your vax, they're not going to let you through Canada. So you're stuck. We have basically lost with it. We tracked this down a bit. I'm a retired air traffic controller, and I used to have a lot of respect for the FAA, my employer. I started to lose it because I found out that they were the ones who put out this mandate that not only does a 2-year-old have to wear a mask on a plane, he has to pull his mask back up in between bites of food while he's chewing. We also had a 7-year-old with us, and I'm not kidding. The flight attendant kept coming by and say, "You got to keep your mask up," while she was trying to eat some snacks. You got to have your mask over your face while you're chewing. So my wife looked it up on the regulations, and there it was. Federal regulations now say that that is the case. But I looked into it, and it's not so much the FAA's fault. The Biden administration put out that as an executive order. They required the FAA to make that mandate, which has basically taken away your right to travel out of the state of Alaska. We have a constitutional right to cross state lines. I don't know if you heard any of the idiots that they on the corporate news media when they interview people. How do you feel about Kyle Rittenhouse's conviction? They go, "Oh, he should have been convicted. He crossed state lines." Oh, so if you cross state lines, you're not allowed to defend yourself? But that's a different topic. My point is they're getting after us for crossing state lines because we can't cross state lines if we can't fly, because you can't drive through Canada and you can't get on an airplane without your baby being forced to wear a mask. So we've lost our constitutional right to travel.
That's right.
They're going to try and take it away even worse. They're already talking about it. They haven't done it yet, but they're already talking about saying you're going to have to also show proof of vaccination to get on an airplane. And then all of us have lost our constitutional right to travel. Whether or not you get the vaccine, I mean, you might get it, but you shouldn't be required to show the proof of that. That's a HIPAA violation. When I went back to work for an FAA contractor teaching air traffic controllers, and they need me really bad. And when the mandate for federal contractors came out, I quit my job. And I know a lot of people were telling me, "No, wait until you get fired." And I'm like, well, I got a good air traffic control retirement. I really don't need this job. And I wanted to quit out of protest for the poor guys who don't have that retirement, and they do need a job. And so I thought, well, I'll take the fall for them. Somebody's got to protest that for them. And so I did, and they missed me, and I'm glad of that. And I got to stick it to the man in that my own little way that way. But we've got to start. We might have to start doing civil disobedience pretty soon. And if they come out with a vaccine mandate to fly on planes, I don't want to get arrested too badly. I don't want to risk losing my federal retirement or anything like that. But we might have to go start demonstrating at the airport, carrying signs. They probably can't let us go through security, but we can go in the terminal, at least on the street, on the sidewalk. We need to we can't lose that right to fly without showing proof of vaccination. Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. When I told my employer, when he asked me if I'd been vaccinated yet, I said, I wrote him an email. I said, I have never had AIDS, syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, crabs, or any other STT. That's the only medical information I'm gonna give you. And I know you're a good guy. I won't tell you his name, but it's a common enough name. His name's Chuck. So I know you're a good guy, Chuck, but you need to grow up here and stand up to your employer who's making you ask this question and tell him to F off. And I expected to be fired, and that's what I wanted. He wrote me back and said, Warren, take it easy on me. I'm quitting my job over this too. Which he did. So I didn't get fired, so I had to quit. And that's the way that worked out. Anyway, thank you for your time. It took enough of yours.
Okay, do we have Vincent? Gary, whatever. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm Vincent Garay, Garay. Actually, I'm investigator Vincent Garay from the famous Bethel Police Department. Hopefully you've heard of what happened in Bethel.
Yeah.
One of the police departments, first or second, that implemented the vax mandate. I have been suspended. They call it a non-disciplinary suspension since September. Guess what? I hired a lawyer. His name is Joe Miller. Suggested by Shelley Hughes. They're paying me since September while we do the administrative court because they suspended me on the 27th of August prior to denying my religious exemption by the HR director, James Harris, who is not anymore with Bethel. He resigned. Yeah, it cost us about, me and my wife, almost $10,000 now, but we can afford it. I'd like to bankrupt Bethel. Because they told me, their medical director of the hospital there, that as a police officer for 27 years in 4 states and 2 countries, one is the Philippines. I've been a cop here in the US. I've been here 21 years. And by the way, I had to wait 11 freaking years to come to this country legally, even though my dad was a citizen here from the 60s. You want to ask me about DACA? I was separated, and my other brother, because we reached 21 prior to our 1987 petition, was actually looked at. Where's the $450,000 that Biden promised these people for being separated? My wife had COVID. 4 days, it's done. We never vaccinated. And guess what? Since COVID started, I was the chief of police in Fort Yukon. When there was no testing, nobody knew anything about it, and they don't know anything about it. I was spat at with blood and saliva from people who were high on drugs and drunk, because that's how they are, because they tested positive and they wanted to infect people. Lo and behold, now I was hired in Bethel after a year with all the testing and all that. never tested positive. Even I had to test twice a week. Slept with my wife on the same bed, asking to have COVID so I can get it over with. Never had it. I had the flu first before my wife had it. We both tested. Capstan, negative. Tested again when my wife got COVID when we went to the emergency. And she was ambulance to whatever the hell they call the hospital here. Yeah. Tested again that day. Negative for COVID and what do you call this? The flu. But before all that, I tested also for antibodies with my doctor here, Dr. Maria Friedman, right here. You never had COVID. You don't have the antibodies. Guess what? Tested again last week. Now I have the antibodies. So, do you really know how to spell science here in America? What's the science in that?
Starts with a C.
58, now going on 59 years old. High blood pressure. Almost got killed many times, twice in Miami. I got ran over in the height of COVID by chief of police in Fort Yukon. Stem cell regeneration. Became an investigator in Bethel. Have you ever gone to Bethel? Have you ever dealt with people in Bethel? You know what we do there? We pick up drunks and high people and put them in the sobering center. But the medical director there deemed me endangering the poor and poverty-stricken indigenous people of Bethel. And that's what I paid for to come here and paid for my citizenship, and that's the thanks I get?
Yeah. Yeah. We're better off with
You might have came here for the reason right now you're standing here tonight. Right. That might be the reason right
The reason why is the dollar is going to go 56 times when I go back to the Philippines.
Well, guys, there's a lot of us that think this just like you do. And I'm proud of you.
And you know what? The only cure for this, which is what I think is the epidemic, is stupidity.
That's right.
And there's no cure for it except war.
Yeah. So.
I got 5,000 rounds all the time. They never really learned from Obama, did they? When will you learn? When they tell you what underwear you can or can't wear? Or how many kids they can have, or they're going to take them away and slaughter them?
Speak up.
We have more than 50% of people from Georgia in the city of Bethel. One guy told me, well, we really don't know because we've never experienced oppression. We in the Philippines have.
Yeah.
I lived through 12 years of martial law. Maybe you need one here. There is no substitute for discipline. 21 years here, never even had a parking ticket. And you know what? They even look and frown on that. We have to look more into your background. I said, have you ever been pulled over in another country? That's why you don't know. So, I might get my job back, but I just want them to suffer. Because we're Filipinos, we never forget, and we never forgive. And we only facilitate the meet with the Creator, and we expedite it. Thank you.
Okie dokie, we have, well, I'm gonna call the last person that's signed up on the list so far. But if anybody else wants to share tonight, you might wanna just start thinking about that. We are gonna ask for anybody else that might wanna share their story that didn't sign up. But Stacy Chapman.
bear with me, I'm not a great public speaker at this point, but I'm fighting this on about 4 different fronts. My husband just lost his job on the slope because he wouldn't get the shot. 25 years with the same company, 5 years from full retirement, and he was terminated. Well, they told him they'd terminate him, and then they kind of made up a work from home scenario at 60% plus pay cut. But that didn't quite work out either, so. And then I'm also a foster parent, and I'm getting really worried that they're gonna start mandating it for foster kids. I already have some people at OCS that are trying to guilt my 11-year-old foster son into getting it, into getting the shot. Thankfully, he's holding out. Excuse me. And then, I don't know how many people know of a program called ANSEP. It's an educational program. For those of you that don't, it is, I think here in the Matsu Valley, they take 32 kids that apply for the program that go and live on the UAA campus in Anchorage for about 7 days, and they get to do all manner of STEM, learning, there you go, learning. You know, and it's an amazing program. I think it can give kids, it can set them up for the future. It is great. However, the first thing on their application says who should apply, says if you are vaccinated. And it's for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and that's it. I'm kind of fighting that, but my foster son is not very good at confrontation or anything else, and he didn't want to take on the fight, so he decided not to apply this year. I'm hoping he will next year. And then I have a nonverbal, severely autistic 4-year-old foster son that I wanted him to get checked for an ear infection. And they told me that I could not bring him into his doctor's office unless I gave him a COVID test. And if anybody knows about autistic kids and severely autistic kids, he doesn't understand the concept of potty training. I can't explain when they put something up his nose, except to terrify him, everything. So I don't know what to do at this point, especially with the foster care. I mean, my husband and I will work out the other one, but I don't know how much say I have in the foster kids, and if they start trying to go that route, or they're guilting the kids into it. And the education that my foster son may miss out on that could set him up for success because we won't take the experimental shot. And we are getting very worried that they're gonna start telling foster parents, you have to get it to remain a foster parent. Yes?
Are you documenting the OCS worker who is trying to manipulate your foster son?
The one time I witnessed it, I did write down the names. I know the person well and everything, but I have not, when I take him in for visitations, I do not always get to witness his interactions. So, that's it.
Thank you for sharing your story, Stacey. There was no one else signed up on the list at this point, but if anybody else wants to speak and you want to just raise your hand, we will call on you. Chris?
Said I wasn't gonna say nothing.
I know, I was going to give you a hard time, but I decided not to.
Oh, but you can't help it.
I can't, because I get my brain juggled
Do
too
I
much.
give you the microphone?
Sure.
Whoa.
It's gonna be short. Hey, we got grandchildren, and it just kind of reminded me when they were talking about, I think this whole thing, they're kind of going after the kids. This is where this is all going, right? And our grandchildren are 13, 9, and 10. And they're being told at school, guilted, that they need to get these shots now that they're coming out because you're gonna kill grandpa. You're gonna kill grandma. If you don't get these shots, you're not being responsible. You're gonna take that back and kill your grandpa. And I took our grandchildren, my wife and I, and we let them know. It's like, you're not gonna kill us. And if we're gonna catch it, we can catch it from anywhere. And if you think that, and my one daughter-in-law, she was kind of sensitive about, she doesn't want the kids, if we got sick and something happened to us, to feel bad for the rest of their lives that they killed grandpa. And I'm like, well, You know, I don't want them to even, how are they gonna know that they even gave it to me if they did? And if they did, it's up to me. If I don't wanna take other precautions or shots or whatever, that's me. That's not them. I do me, you do you. And that's all I really had to say. I think that this whole thing, they're kind of going after the children indirectly. You know, that was the main target to begin with, you know.
You
And
heard on the news today, they're saying 5-year-olds are flooding the hospitals. It was every single news station.
oh yeah, that's the you know, and then you see, I think it's a form of child abuse because the kid has almost 100% chance of surviving COVID. 100% chance. Why would they get, and if they're saying they're gonna spread it, people that got the shot are spreading it. So why are you gonna tell a little kid that you just killed grandpa because you didn't get a shot?
Yeah.
Child abuse.
Yeah. And the other thing I had was, kind of juggled my mind on it, was Rand Paul kind of already is on Dr. Fauci. I don't know how many times you see on YouTube him drilling them, but he had some kind of, the way I understand, they're trying to do some kind of legal maneuver on him that he lied to Congress and some other things to try to get him fired. I mean, he should be removed.
You should be thrown in jail.
Exactly.
right. Waiting execution.
That's all I had, but thank you for having this tonight. So I really wanted to come and hear from other people in the community what was going on. So you're more in tune with the stuff that you're not hearing on the news. You know, you don't hear all this stuff on the news. All you hear is what they program and what they want you to hear. How everybody's dying. Everybody's dying. If you don't get the shot, you're gonna die.
Control people by fear.
Sure.
Check history at work.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Lloyd? Oh, okay. Oh.
False fear.
Good evening. My name is Chad Hickey. My wife already spoke a little bit about my situation. Worked for the DOD, prior military. I got 26 years in DOD because I bought my military time back. And when this mandate first came out, I went to civilian personnel to see if I could retire. Because when I signed on, I didn't sign on saying I would take a shot or, you know, to get a job. So they changed, you know, the requirement. And they said they wasn't gonna allow people to do that, to retire early. You'd have to be in a risk situation, which I thought was a little odd. But since November 4th, I was hired for a different job that pays me $3 more an hour, but they're keeping it from me until I either get vaccinated or have an approved exemption. And they've had my paperwork for my exemption since the 19th of November. I keep notifying them about it, and they keep saying they don't have how they're going to deal with the exemptions yet. The only thing they know is they're going to put a panel together of 5 or 6 people, and you got to sit in front of them and get interrogated. You know, justify your religious or your medical exemption, which I think is asinine. My biggest problem right now, we've all heard over the past few months, and of course I see it as a blessing, really, that we already know now that people that are vaccinated and have the boosters are still getting COVID. They're actually, a higher number of them are getting COVID, and they're passing it along. So this Joe Biden mandate is, to me, null and void. And I think it's time for a lot of people to get together and lawyer up and take it to them really hard. So, but I guess I kind of look at I know some guys in the shop, we started out with 4 people that refused to take the vaccine. We're down to 3. One guy got another job and decided to get the shot to keep his job. A lot of other veterans on the base obviously have done the same thing. And I look at it only just, I mean, there's jobs out there, but I look at it when you get that shot, you're giving up your freedom. And I'm not going to do that. Thanks.
I got a question for you, sir.
Yeah.
2 things. Number 1, it's coercion and it's illegal. Number 2, ask those people on the panel what their expertise is It gives them the right to sit on the panel to take away your rights.
Well, that's one thing that they talked about in these, as I mentioned before, they had town hall meetings on the base, and they said these 5 or 6 people would be subject matter experts. And I don't know if you've dealt with the government much, but they hire people that don't know what they're doing. So subject matter experts, you're correct. I would like to,
Constitution,
to
man.
see the background on that.
Constitution.
Yeah.
Unalienable, God-given, at birth.
And we're not getting, as I mentioned, you know, we have a union on base, and our own union rep at those 2 town hall meetings was more like he was aligning with the government instead of the workers. And just like I mentioned, the one I went to, the GS-14 of the head guy at civilian personnel told everybody in there, I just called the hospital this morning and they said they had the community or whatever vaccine at the hospital. Which, if you've done some research, like you mentioned, it's not available in the United States. And then I had a couple other guys I worked with went to a later one, and our union rep stood up and said, yes, the approved vaccine is on the base. So I don't know if you guys know about Mike Yoder, constitutional attorney in Washington. He's got a lawsuit going on right now, and he put some paperwork out that the reason why he sued the government, they had some whistleblowers that came and said that anybody that puts in an exemption that's a DOD employee is going to get denied. And so when he took them to court and he asked the government attorneys, are you going to fire these people? And they said no. And he's like, I want that in writing. And the judge said, yeah, let's do that. And they gave him 2 days to reply, and they didn't. So that's why there's a stay, or was a stay, for civilian personnel, not to, you know, just let them fire you. And then they also found out through the CDC that the community vaccine is not even available in the United States. So that's out there as well. But, you know, they don't have that mainstream media. You see it on podcasts. He's trying to get the word out, but, you know, a lot of people don't see that. So, but thank you.
Lori, I think you were coming up.
Unless somebody else wants to. Well, I sure didn't plan on talking tonight. Sorry, I was just a hair bit late, so I don't know what all's been said before. There's so much in this and there's so much information. America has truly become a place of being totally propagandized. We're probably the most propagandized nation in the entire world. Getting so much information, disinformation, people who are even playing as though they're part of conservative and then giving misinformation on that portion as well. It's just to the point of being completely insane. I got COVID about a year ago. This thing is, it really is serious. It's serious because it's a real sneaky thing. And what it does is it just depletes your energies progressively, lower and lower and lower and lower. And I was down to a point of about 10% energy left from 100%. And my boys called me up and they said, Dad, we're not up there where you're at. We know how you are. We really, 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 really want you to go to the hospital. So I knew I was about 2 days away before I was going to have to take an ambulance because I just couldn't function anymore. Just no energy to go with. No hunger, no appetite, no anything. So I went to the hospital and the doctor very kindly, he said, would you like to go VA or you want to go Medicare? And I said, well, shoot, why don't you send me VA? So then they gave me an ambulance ride in. Of course, VA doesn't have anything in Anchorage. And so at that point, they put me into J-Bear, is what they did. And doc came in, he said, we're going to give you 5 days of medication. It's going to be really hard on your systems, on your kidneys, your liver, and everything else. And at that, we're kicking you out. So they followed the #1 protocol, which we talked about. There's 2 protocols that they have for treatment designed directly from Fauci, who's through the CDC, going to the, international treatments, HIV, HIS, what is it? Help me there.
NIH.
NIH, there we go. all these acronyms, NIH, National Institutes of Health. And they have two protocols. Number one is remdesivir, which is hard on your kidneys, and that basically shuts off, in simple terms, not getting as sophisticated as the nurses over here and everything else, but basically it shuts down your urine flow so that your buffer can't get rid of your liquids, so therefore they start backing up into your lung cavity and everything else, and all that extra liquids in there. Guess what? Voila, we have pneumonia. And then, bottom line, then you die of that because of other drugs that they give you that don't help you to eliminate the stuff. So he died of pneumonia. No, they died of COVID-19, right? It's just more deception, wrong protocols, wrong medicines, and everything else in the process. I just happen to be one of those lucky individuals where about 30% of them die from that, or you have complete permanent damage within your kidneys where you can't function. So of the test that was on that situation, of which Fauci was very knowledgeable of that a test over in Africa, 1/2 of the people died from it. So they had to shut the test down because they were killing too many people. Then all of the test animals, 100% of them within 1 year were dead. He knew all this, and yet he prescribed it as the #1 treatment that the hospitals were to use. Otherwise, they don't get all the money from good old CDC and the government and everything else, because he tends to control it to the hospitals, to the billions and billions of dollars. So therefore, they won't go to the #2 protocol, which he brought up, number 2E, and the #2 method is ivermectin. But oh no, that's too cheap, and it's too effective, and it's too strong a medicine to be able to shut this whole thing of COVID, which we want to keep going so we can terrorize all the people in America and keep them under control, keep them under your thumb. So the hospitals will refuse to do that. We lost a great guy that we had, Bill Topol, had another guy that was there, and this was all at Providence Hospital. They wouldn't even give them vitamins. Now, what harm is getting vitamins going to do? I mean, what damage could that possibly do? And also refused to be able to give them ivermectin. So another person was there with legal representation, with papers and everything else. Still, Providence absolutely refused to give them treatment. Basically, they just murdered them. They just wait there until they dwindle. We told Bill, get out of there, get out of there. And then you dwindle down. This whole thing, you get weaker and weaker and weaker, to where your brain didn't function because you're also being deprived of oxygen. Because you're being deprived of oxygen, and you can't think the way that you need to, and then you become so weak and so lethargic, and you think that when you go to the hospital or you go to a doctor, you think that you're going there to be able to get well. You think that they're going to protect you. We have all been programmed that way all of our lives, right? Isn't that the way it really is? We have been programmed that if we're going to the hospital, they're going to take care of me. My doctor is going to help to be able to make me better. This is not the situation any longer here. You missed out on a beautiful opportunity in Anchorage. We went to another one of these situations like this. We had 2 women that were there from the Ukraine and one of the other Soviet bloc countries. And if you could have heard them, they said, we refuse to go to the hospitals over there because they will kill us. And now we're in the same situation over here. And, we're not understanding the situation. The socialism, the communism, the fascism that's going on here is unbelievable. And we are being lied to. We think that we're hearing the truth, but the bottom line is, unless you got a broke arm or a broke leg, and you're going into the hospital, and if it's anything even closely related to your breathing, your oxygen, or any kind of COVID, it's a death warrant. It's really that bad. I've had people go in, friends of mine, and another thing that they push. Now, I'm not a doctor, okay, but if it's not below 90%, people just go ape wild, thinking, oh, you're just going to die right here on the street. Well, one of our guys that was there, he was at 47% and still walking around and everything else. Another one was at 40, but he was really in a bad way. But the portion you go into the hospital, and then what they do is then put you in isolation, and because you have COVID, nobody can be around you. You can't be there. And if you don't happen to have your charger with you, as soon as your phone is dead, you are completely shut down. You have no means of communication whatsoever. And the nurses and all the doctors work together to be able to try, you need to this, you need to go on a ventilator. And 9 out of 10 people that go on the ventilator die. 9 out of 10. Now, what kind of percentages are those folks? I mean, seriously, it's almost a kiss of death. I mean, I've had 2 people, and they were in the hospital for over a month and a half, but they cut them off. They were wise enough to stop them off of remdesivir very quickly at the beginning, but they struggled on it. And then they would basically anesthetize you so that while they could have the ventilator on you, otherwise you're in there roping and grabbing because you don't want it there to begin with. And so then they have you drugged, and then they got to rotate you over. It's insane what you go through, and your lungs are then destroyed. You don't have the capacity in them. You got huge problems.
I have to say with that remdesivir, because I was out working the front lines, it didn't do jack crap with the patients. I didn't see one person that it was positive at all. It was crap. They didn't do nothing to the patients and watch them die.
Yeah.
Population control.
It's renal failure, just like we said, backs it up on you and
But
everything
they
else.
won't give you nothing else.
Yeah.
To this day, they won't give you nothing.
They have the 2 treatments. That's number 1, and they will not give you the ivermectin, number 2. So what are they treating you with? They're not treating you with anything. The only thing
I
that
got the monoclonal antibodies and it worked in one day. I was well the next day.
yeah, that's a good thing. That really is. And by the way, you can get it free if you go down here to this old Sears building right here, but you have to also have a precondition. If you're healthy or whatever else, and you've got COVID, first of all, you have to have the COVID, you have to have the test for that. But then the bottom line after that is if you don't have any additional problems, medical problems, then they won't let you have it.
This is anecdotal experience, but I am going to say I'm still seeing people come in sick after getting the monoclonal antibodies, and that is still an experimentation as well. So just if you're doing research on the vaccine, do some research on the monoclonal antibodies. I think it will work for some people, but some people don't get sick with COVID either. So I would just do if you're here about the vaccine, I would research the monoclonal antibodies as well.
What we see from Iona afar is she's not just using one treatment alone with this thing. She's using the monoclonal antibody treatment. She's using the ivermectin. She's using the hydroxychloroquine. And for sure, one of the things that all of us should be doing is we should be taking a minimum per day of 10 to 20,000 IUs. That's minimum if you've already built up.
Vitamin D.
And vitamin D3, that's what you should be taking. And that's the first one of many. You should be taking lower amounts, it surprised me, of vitamin C, like 2 to 3,000 before you get the diarrhea or whatever else, and you just monitor it from that. But you should be taking other than zinc. And with the zinc, you need to be taking I like pistachio nuts, that's one thing, or green tea, 3 to 4 cups, or what's the other?
Cashews.
Corsequin, I'm sorry, Corsequin. That's another one. And what that does is helps to be able to get the zinc over the cellular wall so that the zinc can go in there and zap the different viruses that are there.
And Donut King works. Donut King over here. You could put some.
Talk louder.
Donuts.
Yeah.
Oh. We got zinc.
Well, I reflect that, Satan. The portion was brought up about the kids. I really truly believe that is a huge issue that the pharmaceuticals are going after because it's big bucks for them. It's big bucks, and also it's going to put all them in a bind. What was it? 28 million kids that we have out there, and this is from the professionals. If you haven't seen it, you need to go and look on the web of Alaska COVID Alliance, alaskacovidalliance.com on that. And for the first 4 hours, they had it for only doctors and medical personnel. But I got in on the last portion of that, and they dumb it down enough to where you can understand what's going on. And these people are not just kind of good doctors. These are brilliant doctors. I mean, they are the absolute. Dr. Robert Cole, he was the guy that invented the whole process of the mRNA process that they're using as quote what they used as quote a vaccine. But he's not happy with what they're using, the protocols that they're using at all. He's not happy with it. Dr. Robert Robert Malone. And then also Cole was a pathologist from Idaho. Brilliant. I mean, just as they're talking, you've got to listen to this to understand, because these are truly the biggest professionals that we have nationwide to know. So, and they all of them totally agreed together that none of the children, none of them, up to age of puberty, none of them should be vaccinated whatsoever at all. None, zero. Because he said you'd maybe, out of the 28 million children, you'd maybe lose 28. That would be the possibility. And even with that, they're gonna probably have other extenuating comorbidity problems as well. So if they're in a total consensus on that portion, then you know something's up. And what the estimate, I believe, was at least a minimum, and I think that's a very low minimum, 5,000 would be dead from it. And then you're not talking about the myocarditis or the infertility that were in the girls that are gonna be there. You know, these are repercussions that are gonna go on for the kids' lives times, you know. And the military, what Biden has done with that, he is basically destroying our military. Because most people, as they say from this, if you took the shots, and these are hard words because I have one son who did in his family and one son who didn't. But the bottom line is, the guy, Dr. Yaden, Y-E-A-D-O-N, he was the vice president for Pfizer for 13 years. He said, do not take the vaccination. He said, I only anticipate you to live 3 to 5 years. And if you take the boosters, he said they're designed specifically to affect different portions and organs of your body, your lungs, your heart, your brain. And those are non-repairable items within your body. You can't build it
So I'll tell you
back
this,
up.
I work in cardiac as an RN.
Please.
And these are patients that are telling me, it's not something I read, shortness of breath, chest pain, having problems with fertility. And we're doing MRIs on these people with myocarditis. Being diagnosed is actually in documentation saying that's from the vaccine.
Yeah.
And I see people suffering every single day from this vaccine. Every day. And there are people that have been crying, saying they wish they never had the vaccine, and it's causing damage to their body. It's too late.
There is, if I may,
I mean, it's like I can't, they're just struggling.
So there is a growing need, and there are ways that these people can be helped, and it's with compassion, but also, you know, there's the Well Center, the All About Herbs, they do a test that it'll take some hair follicles, they'll send it off, and you'll get results back within a few minutes. And one of the things that it does is it looks for heavy metal toxicities, it looks for lack of vitamins, vitamin B, D, and all of that stuff, and they can do that through the color spectrum of the hair follicles. But then they can start to detox themselves, like with zeolite. I think that's like a powder substance, like from volcanoes and such, that was researched after Fukushima. So they can start to detox themselves. And that's certainly something I think is going forward, we're going to see a lot more of that. I think is going forward, we're going to see a lot more of that. But they can be helped and point them in the right direction. You know, to look into detoxing. Detox the colon, detox the liver. Don't try to detox the colon first. Again, I can't give you medical advice, because if you try to detox the liver first, it's going to go into the colon, and it's going to go out to the skin. So you got to detox the system first.
And these are people from the ages of 20 to like 80. I mean, there's no specific age group that I'm seeing.
But we got education. It's education.
But you are seeing a lot of younger people with it?
Oh yeah. People like military people, I mean, they're in their 20s and they're like, I've never been so sick. And I'm constantly having chest pain every day, taking nitro and all that, just dealing with heart issues that they've never dealt with in their life.
14 and 16-year-olds passing out while they're sitting down, new onset seizures in your 60s with no prior history of.
And this is
you're
just months,
healthy.
this isn't years,
This
This
is,
is
I work
months. And
2
if-
days a week, and this is a regular thing that we're seeing, and the doctors are ignoring it.
Yeah.
They are.
They are not connecting it, and out of their mouths, in the same sentence that they say, you need to go home and isolate from your family, even though they're vaccinated, they can still get it from you. That's coming out of our doctor's mouths. And then you ask them, when you have a really sick patient come in, hey, he's sitting in his 60s, he's breathing super fast, we're gonna have to intubate him soon if we don't do something. Why don't we try, I think I'm loud enough, but why don't we try to nebulize, give him some budesonide? And the doctors don't want to try any other treatment.
That's right.
And so what are we, my question is, this is quite discouraging because I've been at Providence ER now for 2 years. I've been there longer, but with COVID, 2 years. And we're watching people die from COVID, or we're watching people injured from the vaccines. We're seeing this mandate come through, and my husband might lose his job. What do we do? That's the question now. Where do we go? So I've emailed Ted, so I